The economy's bad, but the video game business is booming.
Coming up next, a WEBN special Game for Business.
We'll tell you why this is happening. Welcome to this WEBN special Game for Business. I'm Trevor Savage.
I'm Cecilia Sun.
In 2008, many companies, even entire industries, were affected by the global economic crisis. But the video game industry was not only stable, it was growing fast. That's when the global game sales reached about $50 billion. It's a $5 billion increase from the year before. The number has been increasing every year, and since last year, the global sale jumped about $67 billion.
The main reason is the emerging popularity of mobile and social networking games. People of all ages are playing games on their mobile phones and tablets. They play games on the train, in the park, and anywhere you can imagine.
Video game analysts and developers point to a common thread. The entire video game industry is maturing. It's time to take video games seriously.
The United States is the #1 video game market in the world. Here, Massachusetts has risen to be the 5th leading state in game development. Small and independent game companies have played a crucial role in the state's game industry.
Boston is one of the biggest game hubs in the United States. Large studios and new mobile platforms are pushing local game developers to play a big role in this business. PAX East in Boston is the biggest video game convention on the East Coast. Our live reporter Ashley Benoit talked with some game developers at the event. Ashley?
Thanks, Trevor. In 2004, the company Penny Arcade created the PAX conventions as a way to bring gamers together by the masses. Its PAX East convention in Boston attracts tens of thousands of people each year. This year, the convention was all about mobility. I talked to Christian Becklin of Moonshot Games about the big event.
The big thing was this year they're doing all mobile games. So they want to have a focus on, there's a lot of indie games out there, but in particular, let's focus on the indie mobile community. And so you notice that all seven of the people here are represented are all mobile, either on smartphone, tablet, so on and so forth.
One of these representatives is Tobias Drury of Mesa Mundi. His company creates multi-touch technology that allows multiple users to play a game on the same screen device, such as a smartphone or tablet.
It's ready for the prime time. You can take this home now, plug it in, and just start playing games. With our Android support, that means that we're able to take things like Catan or Carcassonne or any of these other games and just play them in a multi-user space as if we had giant tablets. And that really opens up the realm of possibilities.
Drury says his new technology is a big deal for gaming groups that have both local and remote gamers. The local players can now come together around one space, while the remote players digitally join in. Live in downtown Boston for WEBN, I'm Ashley Benoit.
Well, thanks, Ashley. This new digital distribution helps game developers sell the products without the need for physical shops or publishers.
And the internet makes small startup game companies no longer need to work in a fixed office. Our reporter Rachel Smith will tell us how a Boston game developer made his business all at home.
It was definitely a risk, but for me, I was willing to lose my career.
George Hernandez left his studio gaming job and started his own independent company, the Lo-Fi Apocalypse. But he knew the cost of leaving.
Being in indie isn't for everybody, even among game developers. You have to be very self-motivated and tenacious. Part of it is definitely my hard work. I work like crazy, but part of it's also luck.
But with this economy, Hernandez says any gaming job is a gamble.
Even the security that you get in a studio, in many ways, is just an illusion.
The advances in smartphone and tablet technology spurred his creativity.
I started teaching myself how to make independent games because I could see that that's what I wanted to play, so there must be people out there that wanted too. And sure enough, once the tools started coming out and once the iPhone came out, got opened, it kind of opened the floodgate. It's basically love, games made with love, and that's what I've always wanted to work on.
The Lo-Fi Apocalypse features a gun app, warfare games, and Guru Melon for tiny gamers. Reporting from Boston, I'm Rachel Smith for WEBN.
It takes big firms tens of millions of dollars to develop a single game, but it takes small startups only a few months and a few $100s to put their games on the mobile market.
After the break, we'll take a look at how video games have affected the job market here in the U.S.
and how the women's role in the game industry is changing.
Stay with us. Welcome back. I'm Trevor Savage.
And I'm Cecilia Sun. You're watching WEBN Special Game for Business.
While the recession is hurting the amount of jobs available in the United States significantly, the employment rate in the game industry is increasing. By 2020, the employment rate for video game companies in the U.S. is expected to increase by 30%. In the past 4 years, 28 new studios have opened in Massachusetts, and video game employment jumped almost 80%. More than 2,000 new jobs were created. The salary across the entire game industry is also rising every year. It can reach 6 figures.
While the video game industry is looking for qualified workers, colleges around the country are tuned in. In Massachusetts, more than 200 institutions are offering courses and degrees in video games. These include MIT and Northeastern University. Even students who are not game majors would love to work in the business. Our reporter Ariana Sandillo is now live. She found some of these students.
Thanks, Cecilia. You've probably heard the term, if you love what you do, then you don't have to work a day in your life. But what if your passion is playing video games? It seems silly, but it's becoming more serious. Now more schools throughout Boston are turning this juvenile pastime into a profession. I spoke with some gamers about the job market in this up-and-coming field.
In Boston, there's been a boom in companies doing either 2D or 3D games. New technology has helped. So anything from an iPad app to an Android is also, it's a good platform for companies to grow in different fields.
The up-and-coming video game industry is giving gamers an opportunity to play with.
We've never had so many requests as this year in a Game Developer Conference from companies asking for students that can do game analytics. It was unbelievable.
Northeastern University is one of the first colleges in Massachusetts to introduce a video game program tailored to the professional industry. Alessandro Canosa says the program is perfect for preparing students for jobs that are desperately needed.
We're trying to create an education that is relevant to people that want to enter the game industry.
But Canosa says you have to hold your own. The competition is fierce.
It's very competitive and a few will get it. So by offering a thorough technical background focused on games, it means that we can afford a large number of students trying to go for AAA studios, not maybe getting a position, but still being competitive in the job market to get interesting jobs.
And the professors are there every step of the way.
One of the things we try to do is we try to give them access to the companies so they can actually speak directly to hiring managers and creative people to find out exactly what route to take.
And like in any profession, the key is to network. Or in the gaming industry, utilize all your allies.
Network your way in. Make business cards and hand them out and become part of the community. And that's the best way to find out where the work is and to create your own career.
The amount of positions flooding out of this industry proves you don't have to grow up to get a job. More and more gamers are putting down their controllers and hitting the books to get educated in their favorite hobby. Reporting live in Boston, I'm Ariana Sandillo for WEBN News.
Thanks, Ariana. The stereotypical image of video gamers is usually teenagers, male, and nerdy. But this stereotype is no longer accurate. Today, the average age of players in America is 37 years old.
Some may have been playing video games for decades and even have become professionals in the game industry. James March works at a TV station in Boston, but he has also another title, a volunteer game developer.
I've been playing video games since, the 1970s. But as for Clanlord, I started playing that around 1999. The game currently is being run by volunteers. So we have this program that allows us to create the areas. Well, they felt that I was a good fit in terms of with the other developers. So I was invited to participate as one of the developers. I find that it's very rewarding. I love the, especially on the designer end, designing a puzzle, designing a quest. That just keeps my mind active, and I just love that challenge and that creativity aspect of it.
In recent years, game companies have started to target women's groups. Research from the Entertainment Software Association shows 47% of video game players are women. Many may never describe themselves as a game player, but they still play games like Angry Birds on their smartphones. Though the game industry welcomes women players, it seems not to welcome women employees. More than 88% of the industry's employees are male. Women, not surprisingly, are also paid less than men. A survey shows in 2011, women earned an average of $10,000 to $12,000 less than their male counterparts. Our reporter Mary-Kate Mannion talked with some women game developers to see what they think about their jobs.
It doesn't actually cost more money to put clothes on her than to not put clothes on her.
That's Marley Norton. She's the co-founder and former head of Green Doors Labs in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
It's just always easy. You have all this inertia built up, to just keep going along the established path. It's a matter of, both people on the production side, the development side, actually seeing a need for change and being able to and willing to do that.
As a game programmer, Marley is part of the 11% of women in that area of the video gaming industry.
I feel in general the video game industry is very homogeneous. It's middle-aged, white, sometimes Asian guys making games. They might make games for women and stuff like that, but in general, the creators are in fact of that demographic.
Now, typically in the past, the video game industry has focused its demographic on middle-aged men, but thanks to cell phones and computer games, they're shifting towards designing for middle-aged women.
So the big thing I see in the future is smaller games. So I think the idea of, we are moving towards this direction where, it used to be your big gaming platform was, your Nintendo, your PlayStation that sat in your living room. And nobody else could use the TV while you were playing games. So it was very much this big deal to have this device. And who got to use it and when. There were all kinds of these power struggles of that. But now we're seeing this serious shift where for a lot of people, their big gaming console is actually their phone. I think there was some amount of, the idea of a gamer being a middle-aged woman was very radical at that point.
This is part of a growing trend and shift as the market is being driven by what the industry dubs soccer moms. From Farmville to Candy Crush, women are looking to game in their spare time.
So I think that's kind of what the soccer mom demographic, to use the stereotype, was kind of looking for. There was an actual market for that this was something that, this demographic was willing to pay for. The ability to have a game that was entertaining and yet flexible enough to actually adapt to their lifestyle as opposed to expecting them to adapt their lifestyle to the game.
I'm Mary-Kate Mannion for WEBN News.
Coming up next, we will discuss what are the problems behind these small video game companies.
And what tax relief can do in game business. Stay tuned.
The game industry is thriving. However, small and independent game companies are still vulnerable. In 2011, 12 game studios closed in the United States, and last year, 20 others closed. One of them was the famous 38 Studios.
Former Red Sox pitcher Curt Schilling started the game company. 3 years ago, he moved it from Massachusetts to Rhode Island because the state gave him a $75 million loan guarantee. But last year, the company collapsed. He has filed for bankruptcy. Despite all this happening, the industry is still hopeful.
To help build sustainable independent game development and improve new media businesses, tax incentives are needed to help the game industry. In the United States, 14 states have tax incentives, but Massachusetts is still waiting for the bill to pass. Our lab reporter Rebecca Morris will tell us how important this bill is. Rebecca?
Thanks, Cecilia. Massachusetts is home to the 5th largest gaming industry in the country. Recently, there have been bills proposed to give that industry tax incentives. Lawyer Mike Cavaretta says these incentives could give the Massachusetts gaming industry the boost it needs.
They all are pretty much based on a concept that if you invest a certain amount in the industry in Massachusetts, then you would be entitled to reduce your tax liability by a certain amount based on how much you invested in the state.
These incentives would help the gaming industry in a number of ways. Trevor Strickler from the Indie Game Collective explains.
Tax incentives will definitely help big local developers and could potentially lure new developers to come to Massachusetts. It's not really going to encourage too many indies or small startups because we aspire to the day that we're making money and we're actually paying taxes.
Not only would it help the gaming industry, but Cavaretta says it would help the state's overall economy.
To help strengthen the Massachusetts economy and also to help strengthen the Massachusetts creative environment as well. So these are very, very good companies to have in your state, because they attract very, very smart people, creative people, well-educated, highly paid people, and that benefits everybody in the state.
Texas recently passed a tax incentives bill. Cavaretta says it has made a huge impact on the state.
So Texas was a lot like Massachusetts. So we had, because of the University of Texas in Austin, they had a lot of the raw materials, if you will, that you need to support a game industry. Probably not to the same degree that Massachusetts does, but they had it. And then they passed this a tax credit bill, and so because they had those raw materials and the financial incentives, they were able to attract companies to come to Austin.
Massachusetts has the tools needed to create a more successful gaming industry. Strickler explains how these incentives will help it.
First of all, there's just an amazing community out here. There's a lot of strong big budget developers like Irrational or Harmonix, and there's an amazing indie scene with guys like Alchemy Labs or Dejabon.
Cavaretta says that even though the tax incentives could do a lot of good for the industry, there is no guarantee they will pass.
There are a lot of people who are hesitant to pass any kind of tax credit, because they look at it as a reduction in revenue to the state.
While there are many supporters of the tax incentives bill, Cavaretta says he doesn't expect it to pass anytime soon. Live at the State House, I'm Rebecca Morris. Back to you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Like all media businesses, the game industry is changing fast. What makes it different from the rest is that it's welcomed change and innovation and thrived on it.
The industry grows in an unexpected way, but it also grows in an important way.
Thank you for watching this WEBN special, Game for Business. I'm Trevor Savage.
And I'm Cecilia Sun.